Welcome back to Game Galaxy, and today I'm going to be covering the entire Outrun series. Outrun is my favorite arcade game of all time, and I spent a fortune worth of quarters on an upright arcade cabinet of it at a local fast food restaurant. Outrun was released in arcades on September 20th, 1986, and was created by the legendary Yu Suzuki, and it was the best-selling arcade game of 1986, and it sold well over 20,000 units within its first year. Yu Suzuki is by far my favorite game creator and designer, as he's created some of my most beloved games. Before we jump in the driver's seat, we get to choose our background music. I've always chose Magical Sound Shower as my song because it's just so classic Outrun. Outrun is a 3D third-person driving game where you race against the clock between checkpoints with your girlfriend. Now notice I said driving game and not racing game, because it is. It's literally a driving game. Your success is based on how well you drive, and Yu Suzuki himself has even said it is a driving game, not a racing game. There were a couple of different versions of the arcade cabinet, and the initial unit was a sit-down cockpit where the cabinet moved with the game as you played. I only got to play this version once and it was awesome, but the machine I played the most was the upright version. You get to drive a Ferrari Testarossa Spider from 1986, and that's just awesome. Outrun has an incredible amount of replayability in that there are forks in the road before each checkpoint, and you choose to either go left or right. Depending on which way you go will change the location and terrain of your course as well as the difficulty. Choosing left is always the easier route, while right is harder, but sometimes gives you cooler locations. For some reason though, I've always found that the very first right is easier than the first left. I always have trouble with that first left side. Dodging traffic and avoiding flying off the road involved a mix of using the brake and downshifting to lower the gear and shifting back into high at just the right moments. Outrun is able to achieve its 3D effect by using Sega's sprite scaling technique called Superscaler. It's the same trick that Space Harrier and Hang-On used. A cool fact is that Suzuki programmed everything in the system to be three-dimensional calculations of position, scale, and zoom rate, and then translated that to the two-dimensional plane. Suzuki himself said, quote, "I was always thinking in 3D. Outrun gave an experience that no other driving simulation game was giving at the time in terms of immersion and how close the camera was to behind the car and the action." Yu Suzuki said that most of the scenery of the stages are based on European geography, since he toured Europe for 2 weeks for research on how he was going to design Outrun stages and capture the realism. That's something that I've always loved about Yu Suzuki, that he travels and gathers research for his projects. On Virtua Fighter and early Shenmue ideas, he traveled through China, and you can really see his life experiences shine through in his games. Outrun had tons of ports, and in the early 90s, the Sega Genesis version was a pretty enjoyable home port. I've heard the Saturn version is arcade perfect and awesome, but I don't have that port. In 2004, as part of the Sega Ages 2500 line, Outrun was remade with 3D graphics, and America and Europe was lucky enough to get this Sega Ages release in a compilation disc for PlayStation 2 called Sega Classics Collection. I love that this is on here. And I wish we would have gotten the rest of the Sega Ages line, but at least the one we did get had Outrun on it. This version is a great update to the original arcade game, and it's really a great way to experience the arcade game because you can adjust the difficulty and really practice and increase your Outrun skills. After the success of Outrun, it was time for the release of the unofficial sequel Turbo Outrun, released in 1989. This game is Outrun on one big 1989 style cocaine high as you drive a Ferrari F40 across the United States from New York City all the way to Los Angeles. In addition to the usual gear shifting, you have turbo boosts available to use to propel you forward. It's hectic and crazy, and you can smash through obstacles and cars while boosting. You have to keep an eye out on your engine temperature to not overheat, and you can't use your boost again until you're out of the red. The best thing about the turbo boost is that it can get you right back up to speed after wiping out and get you back in the race, giving you a better chance of succeeding. Unlike other Outrun games where you have to start from a dead stop and get your speed back up. In Turbo Outrun, slap that turbo button and you're back in the action. You'll be racing against a computer-controlled racer driving a Porsche 959, but you'll leave him in a cloud of Italian dust. There are no forks in the road like the original Outrun, but stages that have set paths. In between stages, you can choose to upgrade your vehicle from better grip on your tires to a larger engine and an improved turbo boost. The coolest feature of Turbo Outrun, in my opinion, is that if you run out of time, you can just put another credit into the machine and get to try the current stage again instead of starting over all the way from the beginning, so that's a stress reliever if you're going for completion. As you're racing, cops will try to pull you over and stop you. That's when you can either use the turbo button and outrun them or ram them off the road. The choice is obvious though. Hit that turbo button and outrun. If for some reason you let that German car driving fool beat you in a stage, your girlfriend will hop over into his car. Unbelievable! You can win her back if you beat him in the following stage, and if you finish the game with the girl, she'll kiss you in front of the opponent and he'll just stew and cry in jealousy, teaching young boys everywhere that the only way to win the affection of a woman is with fast cars and winning. Charlie Sheen! After Turbo Outrun, there were two bizarre Outrun titles released. One of them was Battle Outrun for the Sega Master System in 1989. You had specific targets which were criminals that you had to try to run off the road, and just like Turbo, you could upgrade your car. 1991 had Outrun Europa, and it's just weird. Probe developed this game and licensed through Sega, and it's just weird. Much like Battle Outrun, it has that Chase HQ vibe where you play as Simon Kurtz, a super spy pursuing criminals that stole your Ferrari F40 and top secret documents. You also have to avoid the cops in this one, and they can arrest you. For the record, I don't enjoy this game at all. 1992 gave way to the next arcade release in the Outrun series, and we got Outrunners. Outrunners is so awesomely classic Outrun, and it expanded on the experience. After the kinetic frenzy that was Turbo Outrun, Outrunners brought back the Outrun charm and expanded the scope by giving us many different vehicles to choose from, which came with their own set of characters. We once again have forks in the road and can choose to go either left or right, and Outrunners featured network play and could connect up to 8 cabinets to race against one another. The graphics were greatly improved and gave a much smoother experiences. The cars don't have official licensed names, but they all resemble famous cars. The cars have their own set of abilities and advantages and number of gears you can shift into, or you can choose to drive automatic if you prefer. If you crash in this game, you'll slow down, but you get to keep driving and you won't come to a dead stop like the other game, and that's great. The Genesis port of this game is so awesome because it lets you have 2-player local competitive play, and you and a friend can race against one another all around the world. I played this with my brothers and friends quite a lot and we loved it. It doesn't even matter who wins really. I was always getting a blast that I was able to share the Outrun experience with someone else, and Outrunners will always have a special place in my heart. Next, releasing in 1993 exclusively for the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive, is Outrun 2019. I covered this in my top 10 Sega Genesis videos, and for good reason. This game is awesome. It's Outrun in the future. Outrun 2019 blew my mind when I first got it because it turned up the speed and gave a really cool cyberpunk feel to Outrun that I loved. This is my favorite Outrun game to play on the Sega Genesis. When you hit top speed, your jet engine bursts and you go fast. You really have to use the gear shift and brake skillfully or you'll find yourself flying off the road. This game has many different forks within the same stage, so the amount of combinations of ways to go has been increased exponentially. Back when I originally bought this, 2019 sounded so futuristic. It's mind-boggling to think that's not that far away now. Although I'm a little disappointed we're not going to have jet-propelled cars. But I have marked my calendar on New Year's Eve of 2018. I will be slapping this in my Genesis and playing Outrun 2019 into the new year. Finally, in 2003, we get the official numbered sequel of Outrun 2. And in 2004, we get an upgraded version of Outrun 2 called Outrun 2 SP. And now we're going to save time and jump to 2006, where I'm going to talk about Outrun 2006 Coast to Coast. When it comes to Outrun 2, this is the definitive collective version. Out of all of the Outrun games, this is my favorite because it just nails everything that is Outrun and adds some new gameplay elements that I love. The 2006 Coast to Coast version combines all the courses from Outrun 2 and Outrun 2 SP and adds special cars and new game modes and more music tracks. Like I said, you can choose to play the original arcade port of Outrun 2 SP, which is awesome. Some of the new gameplay mechanics involve drifting, which is a key feature, and I love it. It's so much fun to nail those drifts around the corners and zoom past your rivals in traffic. You can also get a slipstream bonus by driving behind other vehicles to increase your speed since you aren't being hit with any wind resistance. There are 15 cars to unlock which are fully licensed. All of the different cars, modes, and music tracks are unlocked by completing missions and spending Outrun miles, which you earn as you play the game. Outrun 2 or Outrun 2006 or whatever you want to call it is the premier creme de la creme of Outrun games. It's so smooth, soothing, enjoyable, and just beautiful. This game displays in widescreen 480p, so it still looks great today. This is my favorite Outrun game of all time, but none of this would have been possible without my first love of the original Outrun in that upright arcade cabinet. If you've made it to the end, thank you so very much for watching. If you like this video, please slap that like button. and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any videos in the future. And please tell me, what is your favorite Outrun game and where you played it, whether it was in the arcade or a home console port. And thank you so very much to Yu Suzuki for creating this series. And remember, if Turbo Outrun taught us anything, it's that Ferraris are way better than Porsches.